Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 2014-2015 preseason selection special here at the start of the college basketball season.
All right.
Am I wrong?
I mean, unfortunately, to a lot of people, you're not. It's been in the making since November, but for a lot of people, it just fell out of the sky today.
Seriously, this is our NCAA Tournament selection Sunday Racket. We have the field is out, the bracket is out. We have a lot of things we like about it. We have a couple things that we dislike, a couple things that we really dislike about it. We're going to be getting to all that tonight. First of all, let me introduce the panel. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. The NCAA puppetologist himself is with us, David Griggs. David, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing pretty well, and is it true? Are we going to get? We have this wonderful service available, and I understand that we have some feedback.
Yeah, why don't we get right? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to introduce John. John, how are you doing over there? And how was the ice cream tonight?
Oh, it was very wonderful. I mean, the cookies and cream is just in another world.
Now, were you actually in Indianapolis? You're actually coming to us from Indianapolis, right? And you actually got into the selection committee room and were eating their ice cream. Is that true?
I just got back from Indianapolis.
Okay.
I did that last year and got thrown out of Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think there were newspaper headlines about it, too.
Yes.
Let's start with that, though. David, we have a service that we're going to be continuing for next week. Can you tell everybody what the service is that you're offering?
Yes, this is fantastic. What this is that, unfortunately, during championship week and during the NCAA tournament, there's games in the afternoons. During the workday afternoons, school day afternoons, people can't get off work or school to watch the game. A lot of people can. Not everybody can, but not everybody. And there's other things that come up. There might be family obligations, a wedding you have to go to, things that you just don't want to do that distract you from watching basketball. Our service here at Hoops HD is that we will take care of that for you. We will call your boss. We will call your wife. We will call your professor, employer, anybody you need us to call. Whatever it is that's keeping you from being able to watch these games, we are going to take care of.
And just got to email david.griggs@hoopshd.com, correct?
Yes, that's all you got to do.
Now, David, we did get some feedback here. It's been, everybody that contacted you did get to watch the games. Is that right?
Yes. As far as I know, no problems at all.
Okay. Now, we got some feedback here. We want to go over it. It's, very great feedback here. The first is from somebody named WTF, coming to us from Orlando, Florida. Let me read his email here.
Oh, can we get this on the screen, maybe even?
I don't know if we can get it on the screen here, but let's go ahead and.
Okay, just.
Let me just read it out here to you because I'm having a little trouble with that.
Okay, WTF, that's the title.
WTF from Orlando, Florida says, Dear David, I just lost my job. He told my boss that I'd quit if I didn't get the time off. He then told him to go to hell. I got fired. Now, WTF got to watch the games, though, didn't he not?
Yeah, yes, he did.
So,
I'm detecting sort of like a terse tone from that email. I helped this guy get to see the games.
Okay. Now, somebody named Ruined My Life. That's a kind of interesting name. Ruined My Life come from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Ruined My Life emails and comments. I was engaged to be married. I love this woman. I just wanted to get out of a function at her company so I could go watch the games. That's all. No big deal. He, and I guess this means you, David, he told her I could easily find other women to sleep with, and she left me. Why?
Well, because you can. I mean, she left you. Are you not out of what you had to do? You're not at that company function that you didn't want to go to. You got to watch the games.
So Ruined My Life got
the rumor that Griggs himself was not excused from a puppet convention tonight around 6 o'clock. Is this true?
Right. Like, well, yeah, I had a work function. I wasn't able to see the selection show.
Okay, so anyhow, Ruined My Life did in fact get a chance to watch the games, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So what we have here was complete success.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So anybody else that out there, you want to send feedback? Go ahead. We'll try to see if we can if we can get these emails to work on the screen next time. I apologize for that. I was having some trouble here. But again, absolutely, these individuals were able to watch the games. Very successful results. Sure, a new job. Probably needed a new job, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you don't. If I wasn't allowed to watch the games, I would just quit.
And if you had a girlfriend that didn't want to let you watch the games,
I'd leave her.
Yeah, So we have improved
What?
these people's lives.
Yes.
Um, on that note, we want to talk about the bracket, and maybe this screen will work for me here. We're going to keep trying to get this screen share to work. Uh, we do have this here. Okay, so a little better this time. Hopefully this will come up now.
Okay, look, it appears to be. We have a. Oh, there it is. Okay, we have
a
the
portion
bracket.
of the bracket. There we go. Maybe
Yeah.
we can get to fit in the screen a little better here.
Okay, and our committee, I must say, we nailed the #1 overall seed. I mean, we were all over it, unanimous. It's Kentucky.
Yes, and this is the Midwest region with the #1 seed, Kentucky. I think we just got it fitting in the screen here. So let's take a quick look through the Midwest. Kentucky will be playing the winner of the Hampton versus Manhattan play-in first 4 game. Cincinnati, and the winner of that gets Cincinnati-Purdue. Starting with that little pod here. Any comments?
I have one that is under the radar related. Right out of the gate, now it's not going to matter, but how in the hell? And I'm assuming these are teams 67 and 68. Manhattan is team 67. I don't understand that at all. I mean, when you look at Lafayette, who's inside the first 4, and Manhattan isn't, I almost wonder what they must be smoking.
I honestly would have to disagree with you here, David, because my personal seed list, I had Manhattan at 66 with Robert Morris 67, Hampton 68, so it was only off by 1 spot for my personal seed list. I don't think this Manhattan profile was very good at all. I think it's a dangerous Manhattan team had they gotten a higher seed, but Kentucky is going to roll this game, obviously.
Yeah, and Coach Masiello going back to his alma mater that he graduated from over the summer, pending the win, of course. But
well, John, why don't we take a look at that Hampton versus Manhattan game? Any thoughts on that one there?
This is the Tuesday or Wednesday night game.
Yeah, either Tuesday or Wednesday night. I don't think that has been confirmed 100%, but it should be the Tuesday night game because it plays into a Thursday region.
I hope for Hampton and Manhattan fans it's a Tuesday game because whoever gets the Wednesday night playing game, forget getting tickets for that one.
yes. Wow.
Yeah, and as far as that Tuesday night game goes, this in fact should be the very first game of the tournament, Hampton and Manhattan. So congratulations to them; they'll have at least that to hang their hats on.
I think Manhattan wins by about 50.
And
that might be the biggest mismatch in the tournament. Until the Manhattan, congrats, they're going to participate in 2 of the biggest mismatches of the tournament.
Yeah, the Cincinnati-Purdue game and the 8-9 game, I think that should be a really good game, but really interesting, this potential Kentucky-Cincinnati game in the second round.
Yeah, if you spent any time in the northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, these two do not get along, and it's just one of those things. It's a shame they don't play regularly. I don't think most people realize this, but they are about 80 miles apart, so we're talking an hour and some change. They never play. I think they've played maybe twice in the last 2 or 3 times in the last 30 years total. Most recently in an NCAA tournament game, I think it was in 2005. It's been 10 years. Both programs, major programs, regular to the rankings, regular to the tournament, never play.
Part of this goes back to the mid-'80s, the last time Kentucky and Cincinnati played. I think Tony Yates was the head coach at Cincinnati at the time, and
this is a great story, John. Tell this story.
Before the shot clock.
Yeah,
this was before the shot clock era, and Cincinnati played a deliberate slow-down pace for that game.
It was 11-7 at the half.
And just one note here, we're going to review today's games. I guess we'll do that as we go through, but Kentucky did win today also. They pounded Arkansas to win the SEC championship. We'll note about the other 4 games as we move forward and we reach those teams in the bracket.
We were going to do that at the top, but nice job, Scott.
Yeah, but we kind of we got a little distracted with our service that we were running, I think. The games in Columbus here, the Midwest, West Virginia against Buffalo. First of all, congratulations again to the Buffalo Bulls making the New York/Buffalo Bulls making their first ever NCAA tournament, and Maryland against Valpo in the 4-13 game. I think you got 2 potential upsets here.
This is just all kinds of fun in Columbus here. Buffalo, West Virginia, I think that's going to be a great game. Just the styles of play. This is a good Buffalo team with weak paper, but they're better than that. And then yeah, like Maryland Valpo should be good as well. But how about the old rivalries? This West Virginia Maryland game, it was sort of a football rivalry. This one gets heated, and they don't play in basketball that often.
It's it's kind of
That's
a
going to be a fun one.
there's kind of a theme here with the potential second round games in the Midwest. All four of them could be really fun rivalries among teams that are fairly close to each other.
But don't play.
But don't
this
play.
is also where the selection committee will say they did not see this coming in the selection room.
It's kind of funny because they really didn't do this anywhere else in the bracket, but the Midwest, they went 4 for 4 in it. So.
They did, yeah. I mean, and again, you just don't want teams screwing it up. I mean, okay, I would pull for the upset of either Buffalo or Maryland, but I really would like to see Kentucky Cincinnati or Cincinnati Manhattan would be fun as well.
Probably the one thing I'm a little disappointed on, I would have liked to see them switch this pods here between the Columbus and Pittsburgh. To have West Virginia and Buffalo in Pittsburgh with probably dead center between the two schools would have even been more fun, although not that much further off to Columbus, I think.
Well, why didn't they do that? Because because Notre Dame, it seems like it would make more sense to send them to Columbus than to Pittsburgh, and vice versa. I don't understand that one.
Is Pittsburgh within driving distance for Notre Dame, the 350-mile radius?
It is, but Columbus is obviously you got to go by Columbus on your way to Pittsburgh from Indiana. So
West Virginia, West Virginia is right there. Maryland's right there. I mean, that would have been great. West Virginia, Maryland, and Pittsburgh, and all the Pitt fans would have shown up to root for Maryland.
John, let me turn to you here on the games that are in Pittsburgh. Butler versus Texas. Some people thought Texas was a bubble team. We all thought they were in. They do get in here as an 11 seed. And Notre Dame against Northeastern, the first bid for them in, I think, some 20-odd years. Your thoughts on these two games here?
Oh, I've heard Butler in Texas seems to be the trendy upset pick, although 6 and 11 games sometimes can be a little bit of a pick 'em. But 3-14, I'm not seeing an upset in the opening round for this one. But will this be the second time in the Mike Brey era that the Notre Dame makes the Sweet 16?
I think that I'd agree with you here that the road here is very easy for Notre Dame. I think that the Butler-Texas game will be a good one, but either way, the way Notre Dame has played, especially winning the ACC tournament, I think that they are the Sweet 16 team among this pod.
Yeah, I think the Butler Notre Dame matchup, if the chalk holds, would be a great game, and I think they should move it to Columbus.
Then the final section here in the Midwest, the final pod: Wichita State, Indiana, Kansas, New Mexico State. Here it is, Wichita State, Kansas. I think we were rooting for this one last year all along, and we finally have the shot at it if Indiana doesn't screw things up for us.
Yeah, and again, it's a situation we see this all over college athletics. Two teams, especially in recent years, Wichita State being as strong as they've been, Final Fours, number 1 seeds, two teams that don't play. But
did Bill Self at one point say that he saw no need to play Wichita State or something along those lines?
Yeah, he did. He saw no need to. Yeah, I think those were his exact words. Like, there was just nothing to gain, which he's correct. They don't need to play Wichita State, but I disagree vehemently that they have nothing to gain. They don't need it, but it would be good for them. Whenever you can play a ranked team and get on the bus to do it, that's of intrigue to your fans and theirs and national television, that's something to gain.
And, one thing I would say is that they will need to play Wichita State if they both win their opening round games, because otherwise they're going to have to do a forfeit, and I don't think he wants to do that.
Maybe. I mean, let's not jump to conclusions here.
Okay. Well, let me ask both of you. Start with you, John. Who's your pick out of this region? I think this one is a slam dunk in my book, at least. But who do you think is going to win the Midwest?
I would have to say Kentucky at this point.
David?
Yeah, it's Kentucky. I mean, they're just.
I mean, the only team here that I think even can give Kentucky a game would be Kansas, and I'm not confident Kansas even makes the championship. I think Notre Dame might be in the finals here.
Kentucky Notre Dame would be fun.
But I agree. I think Kentucky does make the Final Four. I think they did not get hurt at all by the region seeding, and there was a lot of talk that they could be matched up with Wisconsin in the same region, which would have been a tough road for them.
Yeah.
I'm going to slide over here to the right. I think we should get the East region showing up now. Is it showing on the screen or not?
It's just the middle of the bracket. Let's see. Have you moved it? You need to scroll a little more.
I might need to rearrange it here. If we can't get it on the screen, we may have to go to another screen here. But can we see it?
Fantastic television.
Okay.
We see the middle of the bracket. We don't see any teams.
All right,
But other than that, it's showing up just fine, Chad.
I'll tell you what we'll do is we will instead move down to the west and we'll look for another bracket while we look at the west. So let's talk about the west first while we. Let's start the west, which is where I meant to go next. Anyhow, Omaha and Nebraska. We have Wisconsin versus Coastal Carolina, Oregon against Oklahoma State. David, your thoughts on these games being played here in Omaha?
I really like Wisconsin. I mean, they have been playing well lately. They did struggle. I mean, they won the Big Ten tournament, kind of had to sweat out Michigan State, but I think that's more of a sign of how well Michigan State's playing than anything else. I don't think anybody gives, at least in this pod, gives Wisconsin any trouble.
How about that game there, John? The 8-9 game. Those always tend to be entertaining games. Oregon had been playing fairly well until they ran into the buzzsaw of Arizona yesterday. They're going up against Oklahoma State here.
Oklahoma State could be a trap game, but I don't see Wisconsin stumbling out of Omaha.
And one note on Wisconsin, they actually did have a tough battle today from Michigan State.
Yeah, that was a great game. I mean, again, just good theater leading into the selection show. It turns out, as we learned, our mock committee went with Virginia, but we did so, I think, all of us knowing Wisconsin was actually going to get the number 1 overall seed. And as we learned that, I guess the committee talked about it in an interview, and they said that Wisconsin would have been here no matter what. So, but yeah, a really exciting game. Michigan State was unimpressive until about the middle of February, and ever since then they've been playing so well. They almost won this game today. At the end of regulation, they actually had a lead, forced a turnover, but turned it right back over, which enabled Wisconsin to tie it.
And then in the when we did reach the overtime, it just got a little ugly there. Yeah. Did Michigan State even score in the overtime?
I don't think so.
Okay. The second bracket here up is in the Jacksonville games, second pod, Arkansas against Wofford, North Carolina against Harvard. John, start with that North Carolina-Harvard game. Could North Carolina struggle with this one, do you think?
I think this is where David Griggs came up with the phrase, the basement is up in the attic. We could say that for Carolina and Harvard, or Arkansas and Wofford. But if Arkansas and Carolina faced each other, could be a nice high-paced game.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this Wofford team. I was wanting to pick them in an upset, but I just don't think this is the matchup they need. They really can make Arkansas sweat, but the two teams are kind of similar, and if you watch Wofford, although they did win at UTC, the kinds of teams that give them fits are the fast-paced type of teams. You kind of wish they would have gotten a better matchup, but I just got to go with Arkansas. And Harvard has been letting me down all year. I don't expect them to stop now.
The next bracket up here, the next pot up here, also in Jacksonville, we've got the Xavier versus the BYU Ole Miss winner and Baylor against Georgia State. Let's start with the Baylor-Georgia State game. First of all, Georgia State, in a very ugly game, won the Sun Belt Championship today. It was a close game, but it was ugly. And then the post-game celebration, their head coach, I shouldn't laugh here, Ron Hunter.
No, it's okay. It's Ron Hunter. He thinks it's funny.
He ruptured his Achilles tendon.
Which is a rather serious injury. Yes. Ron Hunter, for those that missed it, I'm so sorry that so many of you did. It's a YouTube gem. If only we could find it. I want to say it was 2003. He was coaching IUPUI. He was with them as they were a transitional team. They finished first, and I believe it was the Midwestern Collegiate. Or was it the Mid-Continent?
Mid-Continent.
Mid-Continent. Thank you, John. And if you didn't see this, they beat Valparaiso in the final seconds of the game. He runs does a slip and slide across the floor, is banging the floor, screaming, "Thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord," at the top of his lungs, rips his pants, and is running around, jumping around with ripped pants, screaming, "Thank you, Lord." I have never seen anybody enjoy themselves that much. And his encore, here we are, fast forward 12 years later, he's coaching Georgia State. I can't help, I'm sorry. It's not funny, but it's hilarious.
No, Martin Gramatica would be proud.
Yeah, after one of the most eye-gougingly, awfully ugly games of the year, literally 38-36 in front of maybe 24 people, he's so excited, he ends up injuring himself in the post-game celebration. What? I mean, oh. No, I hope he's able to try. I mean, I think it would take an army to keep him away from there. Ron Hunter is a very passionate guy. I love him as a coach. I loved him at IUPUI. I think he's done amazingly well at Georgia State. We've been disappointed in him for most of the year, but I am happy to see them get to the NCAA tournament. They've had a story. Like, they were in the Colonial, as you recall, and were one of the better teams their last year in it, but were prohibited from playing in that conference tournament. A tournament they had a really good chance of winning, which denied them that opportunity. I'm glad to see them get this. I hope Ron Hunter's okay.
Sadly, that's a common trend among other people who were bailing out of the Colonial Conference in recent years.
Yeah.
The other game here, two of our first four teams, BYU and Ole Miss. Actually, this being not the last two teams, but the two teams above that, two teams that were squarely on the bubble. In our mock committee, we did put BYU in. Personally, I did not think BYU was going to make it on the strength of simply one win, and that's it, albeit a really good win. They do get in to the first four. They're going to Dayton to play Ole Miss, and the winner of that gets Xavier. John, well, you're our Xavier guy. What are your thoughts about this?
Was this a makeup for sending Xavier to a play-in game at Dayton last year? I mean, I knew Xavier had a couple nice wins this weekend in the Big East tournament, but even I didn't see them getting as high as a 6 unless they actually won the Big East tournament.
Well, yeah, I'm not that offended by this because they really did play so good, just down the stretch here. Not only this, but the Butler win just a couple weeks ago. I'm not offended by this bit at all. David is having a drink, though.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Xavier plays their best ball just when you think you're about ready to write them off completely, but they can't handle prosperity.
Right, and we've seen this Xavier team kind of be all over the map. I mean, we've seen them struggle at home against Creighton, and we've seen them go to Providence and take them to the wall, and then we saw them play really well at least two of the games in the Big East tournament. But I don't know. As good as they've been, it wouldn't shock me if they got all the way to the Sweet 16, and it wouldn't shock me if they went out in the round of 64.
David, how about this game, BYU Ole Miss? This should be the second game Tuesday of the doubleheader at the first four. Who do you like to actually win that game and get Xavier?
I actually like BYU. I thought Ole Miss had a really good year. I just think BYU's playing better now. I realize that Gonzaga ran away from them in the championship game, but other than that, they played pretty well for about 30 minutes. I don't think they're going to let it bother them that much. I just like BYU to win that one. And again, the way BYU's playing, and I'm not saying this is an argument for their inclusion. We did put them in, and I didn't have a problem with that. But I think the way they're playing, they're playing well enough to get past Xavier in the round of 64.
Right, and I'd agree with you on the BYU pick. Ole Miss coming off of back-to-back losses to Vanderbilt and South Carolina, two teams that obviously weren't even sniffing this field. So I would go with BYU. I think Baylor comes out of this pod, though. I think they are head and shoulders better than any of the other teams in it.
But Vandy at least got an NIT bid, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, Vandy is in the NIT, and they're not in the tournament. That's what NIT stands for. The Portland-Oregon games here in the West region, Arizona gets the number 2 seed. There were some people that thought they should have gotten a 1 seed. I was not among them. I think this is exactly where they belong. Getting a matchup with Mike Davis and Texas Southern, whereas Ohio State and VCU in what I think could be a really entertaining game in the other half there.
Yeah, VCU really played well down the stretch. After the injury, I was really unimpressed with them. I personally didn't think they were that much better than a 9 or 10 seed caliber team, but they ended up winning the tournament of the conference they had been struggling in and beating three pretty good teams to do it. Richmond, who I didn't value them as much as the committee did. We're going to get to the end of the show. A pretty good Dayton team, and if I was smart, who'd they beat in the semis? They clobbered somebody, didn't they?
Was it Rhode Island?
Yeah, was it
No, they
Rhode?
beat Davidson in the
I'm
semis.
Yeah,
sorry,
they clobbered Davidson. Thank you.
Yes.
I was off somewhere else covering the game.
And that's the other game. One of the other games that did happen today was VCU in a real close game with Dayton, but they did pull out the win. And I am impressed that they were able to bounce back and finally start to play really well without Briante Weber.
Yeah, that was a great game today. And again, Dayton, very limited personnel, playing their third game in 3 days against a team that likes to run. You would just think that VCU would have run all over them, but they didn't. I mean, what a gutty performance by this Dayton team. We're going to get to Dayton in a second. Little did I know when I was watching this game just how important it almost was.
Now, going back to VCU, you mentioned the Briante Weber injury. Let's not forget the Trevion Graham injury, where they also lost to LaSalle and St. Bonaventure in between.
Yeah.
Right, and when they got him back, they did start playing better, although they did suffer a couple losses even with him until they hit this A10 tournament. So let's ask the question, David. I'll start with you this time. Who do you see coming out of the West? And I think this is a wide open region, honestly, in my opinion. But who do you see coming out of it?
Arizona. I thought Arizona, Wisconsin in the Elite Eight last year. It was one of the most exciting Elite Eight games. Really, one of the most exciting games of the tournament. We could see a rematch this year. I'm still kind of bummed that those games got bumped down the Turner because it hurt the ratings big time. But that was just a hugely exciting game, and I think Arizona comes out of this.
I actually agree with you, John. You can make it 3 for 3. You can go with someone else.
No, I'm going to go 3 for 3 and pick Arizona here.
So we've got two consensus teams so far in Kentucky and Arizona in our Final Four. So you guys know what? You may not even have to watch the rest of the tournament here, at least on this side of the bracket. I'm going to pull down the screen here for a moment. I'm going to switch formats of the bracket. I have another format up here that we can actually see the other half of the games, possibly. As we wait, drum roll, please. There it is.
We're using two different. That's beautiful.
Well,
because we need it all on this side. Yes, I mean, this. No one makes do with less quite like we do here at Hoops HD.
We've switched over to a format that's far more editable.
We've switched over to the help of Wikipedia. We also see game times and networks in here. I guess they would just release. I hadn't seen that.
Oh wow! This is exciting. Okay, we should have gone to this format earlier.
Yeah, but anyhow, this is the East region here. The top seed, Villanova, getting Lafayette. And
I still can't believe Lafayette is inside the first four.
I think I agree with you there. I would have had them in the first four also. And that's, two schools very close to each other.
But I think that was also a procedural thing because one playing game had to be in a Thursday site and another one in a Friday site.
Well, they wouldn't have moved a team out of the play-in game, though. So
yeah, they would have just put it with a different number one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these are neighbors here. So I mean, if you follow the Patriot League, you know that Lafayette is 17 miles away from Lehigh.
And how many times have they been in the NCAA tournament? Sorry, that's an inside joke.
yes, it is.
The other game is the winner of Villanova after they beat Lafayette gets the winner of NC State LSU game. This NC State team, I mean, this LSU pick, I think a little bit was a surprise to me at getting a 9 seed. I had them in the field, but I thought they would have been more in the 11 seed range than the 9. Which, as soon as I saw that come out, I was pretty confident that both Ole Miss and Georgia were getting in the field, which did happen.
Right. or LSU had a really schizophrenic profile. They really did have some good things on it. They're kind of going in the wrong direction, whereas down the stretch, I think NC State is going in the right direction, which probably means LSU will win this game, no problem. But yeah, I could. A case could be made for LSU being a 9. That's not where we had them. That's not where I personally would have had them. But when it comes to what do you do with schizophrenic teams? This is not the most egregious, gross mistake that the committee made by any stretch of the imagination. They won at West Virginia. They did some really good things.
John, the games here in Seattle, Northern Iowa against Wyoming, Louisville against UC Irvine. You championed this Wyoming team all season. We all, told you were crazy, you were nuts, and it's time for you to gloat because no matter how they did it, they're in the tournament.
Yeah, but of course I was also championing Wyoming as an at-large. But at the end of the day, they got the golden ticket.
Yeah, I mean, they're in and somebody else is not, and that's all that matters, I think. And I was very impressed by the way they played in the Mountain West tournament this week.
I was as well.
Not that it's fun to watch, but it was impressive the way they won the game. That they won the games.
I think they're in way over their heads. I like this Northern Iowa team. I think they're getting. They're the team that's going to come out of this pod. Louisville. I was arguing that they belonged on the 6th line, and I still think that's where they belong. That's not where they ended up. And I think that Northern Iowa is going to beat them. I don't want to say easily. It's not going to be a blowout, but I think that they're the better team, and they're going to win that game.
It's going to be a root canal for Northern Iowa, though.
You know what? I disagree with both of you. I think Louisville does come out of this region after they beat Wyoming in the second round. I think that Wyoming is going to pull the upset here. I just think
crazy.
that Northern Iowa is it's
Would
not
you
a
like
high
some
level
more,
competition. Yeah, just pass that bottle over this way. But let's switch out to the games down here in Columbus.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a bottle too. Wow, I've got water here. But Providence against the winner of the Boise State and Dayton. We'll get to that in a second. The other game is Oklahoma and Albany. Oklahoma, one of 3 Big 12 teams to get into a 3-seed line here. Obviously, the committee really valued the Big 12, and I think deservedly so.
Yeah, I think so too. Oklahoma is really good. When they don't miss layups, they're even better. As much as that stung in the moment, it's history now. And even had they won that game, I don't think they would have ended up a whole lot higher than the 3 line. I like Oklahoma out of this region. This is interesting though. In Columbus, I don't think Oklahoma has any trouble with Albany, but I'm really looking forward to both the first 4 game between Dayton and Boise. I think those are 2 really good teams that are better than their paper, and I think the committee undervalued both of them, one of them in particular. Yeah, and Providence, who we almost saw knock off Nova in their most recent game.
Yeah, and I've no problems with Providence being the 6th seed here. One of 2 major problems I have with the field is the fact that I thought Dayton was safely in the tournament. Turns out not only were they in the first 4, but according to the seed list that was released, they were the very last at-large team in. While Scott Barnes did come out and said they would have revoted and reconsidered things if UConn had stolen a bid here. It looks like Dayton would have been the team that was left out entirely had UConn stolen a bid, and that would have been a crime in my opinion.
This literally makes no sense. What is it? Okay, you're going to value VCU, who finished 5th in the conference, that much, but you're going to value Dayton this little. Dayton won at VCU. Dayton was higher in the standings. They beat a lot of common opponents that didn't beat VCU, and they almost beat VCU again today. Dayton does have some things that smell really, really funky on their profile, particularly that Duquesne loss. But the bad on their profile does not come close to outweighing all of the good they did. This is ridiculous. I think it's one of the most. It's just. It's hard to believe that had UConn won that game, which they almost did, that Dayton wouldn't be in the field.
Yeah. Now, Dayton, the good thing here for Dayton is that they actually get a true home game here against Boise State because Dayton does host the first four, and there's actually something in the principles and procedures that says specifically that if Dayton is in the first four, they can play on their home court, and that is exactly what's going to happen. So it should be especially getting a team from Idaho coming in here, they're going to have a very big home court advantage here coming up Wednesday night.
Yes.
John, do you think Dayton wins the game, or any chance that Boise could pull the upset?
Well, stranger things have happened in Dayton, but I can't see them losing this one. But I would also like to note this is the first time since 1986 we've had a home game in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and I think it was
back there.
Syracuse was the last one.
And LSU.
Well, although Butler did play in Indianapolis and was the host school in the Final Four. So
True. Yeah. Wasn't in their home arena though.
not the home arena, but they were technically the host school there in the Final Four. So
Yeah. Dayton basically has
but they couldn't disqualify them either.
no.
So Dayton has basically a six-man rotation with no front court to speak of. They will have played on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. 6 games in about 9 days if they were to get through this region. That is a lot of games.
Yeah,
And also a rare opportunity to wear red in Dayton.
Yeah.
And will they be wearing red? I'm
Yeah,
not
they're
certain
the
that was decided.
No,
I didn't know.
It's the seed list that decides it.
Okay. Even if Dayton does get by, they're just going up the road to Columbus here to take on Providence. So Providence cannot be very happy about the prospect of Dayton, and definitely going to be rooting for Boise State, I would think, here on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I don't think Providence would have too much trouble with Dayton. But I don't know. I've been underestimating Dayton all year. And apparently so is the selection committee, so maybe I shouldn't feel so bad.
A team that was controversial in the Charlotte section here, our mock committee left them out. I personally thought they would get in, and they did get in as a 10 seed, despite no wins over anybody in the field other than Ole Miss, who's in the first four. Michigan State versus Georgia. Georgia, the team we're talking about. The other game there is Virginia and Belmont. So first of all, that Michigan State-Georgia game. John, your thoughts on that one?
Well, this one should actually be somewhat evenly matched, not looking aside at the paper, but I would give an edge to Michigan State, who's been playing much better down the stretch.
Yeah, I like Michigan State big in this game. I don't think the Georgia pick is controversial. None of us are surprised by it. It's not a pick I would have made, but it was sort of a textbook bracketology pick. They didn't have any wins over anybody solidly in the field, but they had a lot against the bubble, and they had a fair number of road wins. They had a good conference record in a good conference. It's just when you look at it categorically, which I say we should never do, Georgia was pretty much obviously in.
Yeah. Obviously, Virginia here, after they beat Belmont, who's a feisty team. I don't think they're going to easily roll, especially the style that Virginia plays tends to keep teams in their games. But Virginia did not get any favors in the committee having a potential Michigan State game in the second round.
Not at all, and honestly, the way things have been going, I was so impressed with Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. If they keep it up, I think they get out of this.
So let's go to the big question again. Who do you see coming out of this region? And I'll start with myself this time. I think it's Villanova here. The way Villanova is playing right now has just been blowing me away, and I think that I don't see anybody here that can beat them other than Virginia, and I don't think that Virginia gets there. I don't even know that Virginia gets past Michigan State.
I am going with Villanova for the same reason. Every year there's a regional bracket that collapses. I think it's going to be this one. I think Michigan State takes down Virginia. I think Northern Iowa takes down Louisville. And I think Providence is – we might see a Villanova-Providence Elite Eight.
Which was a great game this past week, so maybe we'll get another good one.
Yeah, Oklahoma. I don't want to chalk them. Oklahoma's playing really well. That Oklahoma-Providence game would be a really fun game on Sunday. So,
John, your thoughts?
Well, this is where it's time to go against the grain, where I would pick Virginia to come out of this region. As good as Villanova has played, I do think they're due for a tough night in the regional someplace.
All right,
All
let me
right.
see. I'm going to go ahead and open up a little more room here, too. Go
Yeah.
down to the South Regional, where we have Duke came in as the number one seed. Maybe this will fit in the screen a little better now. Okay. Duke, the number one seed in the South. They do get the fourth number one seed. It was a bit of a debate here. Well, I guess it was the third number one seed. There was a debate here that maybe Arizona would knock Duke down a line. Duke does get a number one. They go up against the winner of the North Florida Robert Morris game in Charlotte per NCAA rules. They have to play in Charlotte. And then they get the winner of a San Diego State St. John's game in the next game. Their potential Duke St. John's rematch here.
Yeah, a potential Duke St. John's rematch, and Steve Levin, who declared himself to not be a good tournament coach, I still think that's hilarious. I just think Duke, and again, it's symptomatic of a one seed. I see them cruising out of this pod.
I agree, and you know what? I mean, you got interesting in the St. John's San Diego State game. Steve Loudon versus Steve Fisher, two coaches that just, at least for Steve Fisher, since his Michigan days, has not been able to have much success in the tournament.
Yeah, he's gotten San Diego State to the Sweet 16 a couple times. I wouldn't say he's had no success, but you know, they went down. Every year they rally the troops, and they just can't get to the Elite Eight. And I don't see that happening.
I was going to say San Diego State didn't have any NCAA success before Steve Fisher came aboard.
Yeah, they never won a game. So.
I agree. It's just been like, you know, it just always seems that they get knocked out by somebody that we thought they were going to beat, and I'll put it that way. Yeah, I think that this year, I think that Duke does. I do agree that I think Duke gets out of this bracket, although I think that they may get more of a test in the second round than you're giving either one of these teams credit for. John, in the games in Portland here, we have Utah going up against SFA, Georgetown against Eastern Washington. Well, let me get your thoughts on it here because I have some big thoughts about both these games.
I got some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I've said this before. There were 7 straight seasons where Georgetown has lost to a double-digit seed, either in the NCAA Tournament or the Big East Tournament. And that streak may still be alive at the end of this year. Even if they get by Eastern Washington, they still have a dangerous SFA team lurking in Portland.
And you said exactly what I think here. I think that both these double-digit seeds here are very dangerous, and we could end up with a 12-13 game in the second round.
I've been on under the radar, at least for the second half of the season. And even in our mock committee, I've been kind of dogging this SFA team. I think they only have 5 or 6 top 200 wins. I just can't get excited about that. I think they have a bloated record against a weak schedule, and they're being overvalued. And because of all that, I do think they will take down Utah.
You know, I was with you, and I was ready to. There was very few teams that I thought that SFA could have matched up with that I would have actually picked them to win. But then they get Utah, which is a team that I think has been overrated, even as a 5 seed. I think is overrated, and
SFA is good. They looked, and again, the eye test. I know it's the eye test. They looked great against a pretty good, not tournament good, but pretty good Sam Houston State team. SFA they're a live wire team right now. Sorry, I cut you off, but I think they take down Utah.
They looked very good 3 times against Sam Houston.
Yeah. And I honestly have never been sold on this Georgetown team. I know they have a good profile. I know they had some huge wins. They never passed the eye test for me, and maybe I just saw them on the wrong days or something. But I've just felt they've been very
on the days they played, you saw.
Okay, maybe I was right about them. The Louisville games here, as we move to the bottom of the region, SMU coming off of the win today over UConn. Just briefly about that game, SMU sprinted out to a lead. UConn played like awful again in the first half, just much as they did in their semifinal against Tulsa. Did make a comeback in the second half, but just didn't have enough left. And I think playing 4 games in 4 days really just got to them at the end of that game. And SMU didn't get the automatic bid there. They get David. I mean, we could probably do 2 hours on the team that they're playing.
This can be best described by Lee Del Vecchio as a bye game for Southern Methodist.
This is, without question, I don't think I disagreed this much with a selection in about 10 years. This UCLA team has done absolutely nothing. There is no defense. And the last team that surprised me this much is, I think, the team we all remember, that Air Force team from 2006. That Air Force team did nothing to prove itself, but at the very least, with that team, you could plausibly say they passed the eye test. Because UCLA, you can't even say that. They definitively proved that they weren't very good. Had they taken Murray State, I would not have agreed with the selection at all. But Murray State didn't really go out of its way to prove that they aren't very good the way UCLA did.
Yeah,
I
UCLA,
just cannot. This is a
UCLA. I mean, they played Kentucky. They scored 7 points in the first half against Kentucky. Now it was Kentucky, but Buffalo did a whole hell of a lot better than that in the first half against Kentucky.
Yes, it
Columbia
was Kentucky,
did
but the other thing, that's just the top of the list. It's a long list of why this team is no good. 2 true road wins.
And Scott Barnes on CBS right after the selections come out was asked about this UCLA team. The CBS crew in the studio there did not agree with this pick either. He said, well, that they were playing a lot better down the stretch. The team lost 4 out of their last 9 games. That's not better down the stretch, 5-4. Andy Katz then on ESPN went in.
One of the wins, it wasn't one or two of those wins were against USC.
Yeah, 2 of them were against USC. Andy Katz grilled him on that with the numbers, and in the end, all that Scott Barnes could fall back on this team was eye test, which, in my opinion, is the cop-out. I've got nothing else to say. I've got no defense. Let me just say eye test because you can't go against that on numbers. This UCLA pick, not only in, but in and above the first 4.
Above Dayton, above Boise. This is a horrible selection.
John, your thoughts on this travesty here?
UCLA. Why are we discussing UCLA?
But maybe we should just discuss the other half of this bracket here. Iowa State and UAB. I mean, congratulations to the Blazers winning their first ever Conference USA tournament. Iowa State, I love the way this team is playing, and while SMU, I think that they are in the wrong bracket to get out of here, and I think Iowa State ends up taking this pod.
Yeah, I think Iowa State got what you might refer to as a favorable draw. UAB won the conference tournament, really didn't play. They played some tough games out of conference, and they're certainly better now than they were prior to conference play starting, but they won the tournament in their home city, and they are just having to punch way over their heads to even stay with Iowa State for a half, I think. And then you have SMU taking on a team that really should be a 3 or 4 seed in the NIT.
Which is why UCLA is going to end up winning that game, just to prove us all wrong. But
even if they could win the national title, and I'll still disagree with the selection. I mean, the selections people have disagreed with have basically been because they're stupid. VCU was the right selection. The year everybody went nuts over them. This is
same with that George Mason selection when they made the Final Four. That everyone went nuts over that one, and I thought it was the right selection.
And Bradley was the right selection that same year.
That was also when a George Mason player was suspended for the first game, I think.
Yeah, that was Tony Skinn was suspended in the Colonial Championship game, and he had a 1-game suspension, and the argument was that because they're not going to have him for the first game, they should not have gotten in. I did not agree with that argument at all. And
then other teams that haven't played out, like South Alabama was in at large one year, and they absolutely deserved it. Now, I think they lost by 30 as a 10 or 11 seed, whatever they were, but they absolutely deserved it. This is the worst, whatever it is, whatever metric you want to use. RPI, power rate. Well, I guess one of their power ratings was all right, but this is the worst selection I have probably ever.
I still think that Air Force 06 was worse, but this may be second worst. I mean, we did have it as our mock committee. UCLA was still on our board in our next 4 out, but they were pretty much at the bottom of that next 4 out, meaning there were 7 teams that we thought were better than them, and a few teams below them that that even the committee had above these.
I was adamantly against Murray State. I would have, given the choice between the two, I would have picked Murray State all day.
And I was exactly going to agree with you there. Exactly what I was going to say is I see a defense for the Murray State pick. I do not see a defense for the UCLA pick. The final bracket here, let's hit the Seattle games. Iowa against Davidson, Gonzaga against North Dakota State. I don't think Gonzaga's going to have any trouble with North Dakota State. That Iowa-Davidson game, I think Davidson's in trouble here also, especially if they play anything close to the way they played against VCU the other day.
I agree. Davidson's had a really good year, and there's nothing to feel bad about, but I don't think they're going any further. I think Iowa wins definitively. Davidson is a really good shooting team, and when they're hitting their shots, they can pretty much stay with anyone. But I just don't see them beating Iowa. I have been thrown off the boat time and time and time again backing Gonzaga, so here I am doing it again. I think Gonzaga gets out of this pod. North Dakota State, really good season. And let me put that in the context. It's a good season considering they lost their top 6 players from a team that was on the bubble last year and made the round of 32. To have to rebuild like that and still be able to win the conference and get back to the tournament and be returning, I believe, their entire team next year, that's a hell of a good year. And
a new head coach there also.
Head coach, so. Yes, and they're going to get killed. But still, great season for North Dakota State. A team to keep an eye on next year, really.
Let's go with the picks again here. John, who do you like to come out of this region?
I'm going to say Iowa State in this region.
Iowa State. Okay. David?
I'm going to say Gonzaga.
David, this is not good because you and I have now agreed on all 4 of our final 4 picks.
Oh, God. And one of them is Gonzaga. This is definitely not good. I would like to apologize right now to Mark Few.
I actually, let me go back. My preseason Final Four was Kentucky, Arizona, Gonzaga, and SMU. But I'm sticking with 3 out of those 4 here. And obviously, if SMU had been in the same region as Villanova, I may have had to stick with my guns. But we now have our Final Four picks. Let's go with the final pick here. Before we go on to the teams that missed the field, who do each of you think is actually going to win the whole thing? David?
Who was my other Final Four?
You had Kentucky, Arizona, Gonzaga, and Villanova.
I think it's going to be Villanova.
And John, who do you think wins it all?
As much as it pains me to say this, Kentucky.
I'm going with Arizona. This was my preseason pick, and I'm sticking with it as well. I just have a feeling about this Arizona team this year, even though they had some questionable losses. What they did to Oregon yesterday was pretty impressive. Let's talk about teams that did miss the field here. Can we talk
about the next 4, because this is almost as alarming as UCLA getting in. Now, fortunately, none of these teams were in.
This was the official list from the NCAA of the top 4 teams to miss the field. The first one was actually announced as the team that would have gotten in if Wyoming had not stolen the Mountain West bid, and that was Temple. After that, Colorado State. I think we all agree that those teams were right there on the bubble and are not offended by them being in or out. The other 2 teams they had, for me, it would have been Miami and maybe somebody like Illinois or Connecticut, even with the loss. It was Old Dominion and Richmond.
That is, I just don't understand that. Old Dominion and Richmond. Richmond had a good year. Richmond lost a lot of close games. I mean, they're one of those teams to where had 20 points fall indifferently, they might have 6 or 7 more wins. But the profile wasn't there. I don't. Richmond and Old Dominion and Miami is not even in the discussion. I'm a little bit blown away by that.
Yeah, and that was the thing I was most blown away back. That Miami's appeared to not even be close. You take a BYU team that all they did was win at Gonzaga, and you leave out a Miami team that won at Duke, plus several other solid road wins such as Pittsburgh and Syracuse. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, Old Dominion's profile in November and December was at-large worthy, but they're playing Conference USA. Was anything but at-large worthy.
Yeah, when you lose in a conference filled predominantly with sub-NIT, and 5 bad, but it was not, and at large, it wasn't even close. It may have even been better than UCLA's, but it wasn't good.
Any other thoughts here about well, sorry, any other teams that you think missed the field that should have been there, John? Anybody else that you even considered?
Well, I only had Temple and Miami as other teams that I was looking at. I mean, I had Tulsa in my first four out, but I couldn't make a case for them to be really in there.
I wouldn't have liked the Tulsa pick, but I would have liked it more than UCLA.
Yeah, I mean my teams that missed out that I considered were Miami, Temple, Colorado State, Tulsa, Murray State, even Illinois or Texas A&M. I could understand the case where I wouldn't have liked it. I don't like this UCLA. I just don't like it. I mean, it smelled so bad. The other teams like Illinois had stuff at the top of their profile that you could look at and say, hey, that makes you at large worthy.
Yeah,
UCLA,
if it were debate class and you were given the assignment to argue for Illinois or Texas A&M, you could at least do it. If you were given the assignment to argue for UCLA, you would fail the assignment because it can't be done.
This is what UCLA did here. In terms of good wins, they have a home win over a Utah team that is very suspect, and a home win over Oregon team that wasn't even in the field until the last 2 weeks when they got red hot. Beyond that, they have a home win over a Cal team that absolutely stunk most of the year, and they swept Stanford, home and road. Stanford, a team that was on the bubble most of the season or in the field, they ended up being 1-7 against the top 25, 2-8 against the top 50.
All at home.
All at home. They have 2 true road wins all season at Stanford and at USC.
Now, that's the criteria. Why UCLA? Why not Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh also had 2 top 25 wins at home.
Well, hell, why not UC Davis?
On top of that, UCLA has 3 sub-100 losses, Colorado, Oregon State, and Arizona State. Now, the Oregon State loss, yes, they were out without one of their better players, but even if they'd won that game, I don't see anything on this profile that says this is an NCAA tournament team that has at least 4 at-large teams below them on a seed list.
Right, and again, it's just the idea that, like, had UConn won and Dayton been left out and UCLA is in, I wonder if the city of Dayton would have still been there in the morning. I mean, they would have like as Lee Del Vecchio said, they would have locked up the arena and told the NCAA to take the first floor somewhere else.
They very well might have.
Yeah, they would be burning couches at the UD ghetto tonight if that were the case.
Yeah.
I really think that the team that most should have gone in, the team that I liked the best year, it wasn't even on the first 4 out, was this Miami team. Miami won at Duke, won at Florida, won at Syracuse, won at Pittsburgh. Florida had the highest BPI of any team that did not make the field. Now, granted, that was a whole metrics thing, but it was a solid road win.
It was a solid road win. Like Miami, I think the analogy I used, they had one monster chart-topping hit, and that was it as far as chart-topping hits. But they had a lot of other decent stuff on their profile. They could put together a pretty decent seed list and put on a pretty good show. Because those wins were pretty notable, whereas nothing UCLA did was notable.
Right. On that note here, let's end this with let's give the committee a final grade here. If you were grading them, I honestly think that other than the Dayton being in the first 4 and UCLA's inclusion, I have no problems with anything else in this bracket. I really think it was a solid job, but when you combine 2 Fs with a couple of As, you end up with a C- in my book.
Yeah. Giving them a grade, I think our mock committee, we didn't talk about that, but we actually ended up with, it was either 62 or 63 within one of the ones we missed was Georgia, who we knew were getting in but decided not to take ourselves. So we were pretty close on most of it. Now, again, that's just my opinion. I understand the Georgia pick. As much as I don't like Dayton being at the bottom of the seed list, I think that there are some things on there that at least, while not strong and that I don't agree with, I can at least understand some rational thought, particularly the loss to Duquesne and the lack of wins against tournament teams. Having said that, when you UCLA in the field, this UCLA team, it's kind of like writing an awesome essay and then putting at the bottom of it And therefore Nebraska has the best beaches. It just ruins everything you had just done prior to that. I think it's a C. I think it's a D because of UCLA.
Yeah, it really is. It's well, John. Let me. Well, actually, before I go to your grade, John, just a quick note that we just mentioned about our committee, that we have our mock committee. We were not trying to guess the real selection committee.
We were not.
We were trying to do the process ourselves and say, if we were the 10 people in the committee, how would we choose this? So unlike a lot of bracketologists out there that simply go and try to guess the committee, we said this is how we would rank the teams, and that's why we discussed the fact that we thought Georgia would be in, but we didn't think that their profile merited inclusion.
Right.
John, any final thoughts about the actual bracket?
As surprised as the UCLA pick was, I'm not going to put too much emphasis on the one or two teams that are left out, but also give them a little bit of credit for at least trying to put together some spectacular TV matchups for the early rounds on Thursday, Friday, and also the Saturday, Sunday games. Kentucky and Cincinnati, if that comes to fruition, that probably is going to be the feature game.
You know, that's a great point. What they did in the Midwest region, for me, almost makes up for the UCLA pick, because I do love what they set up for potential second-round matchups here.
Okay, C-, but still, you can't just end the essay with Hitler. He was swell.
Oh, God. Not going there. Well, on that note, any final thoughts from either one of you?
I'm just excited. I mean, it always is. It's front page everywhere. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the country, if not the biggest. It's just such a great time of year. In my opinion, it's the best. I mean, I like all the championships. It's by far the best one the NCAA has. It's going to be fun.
Yep. And it all begins Tuesday night with Manhattan and Hampton, and is going to end coming up on April 6th with the championship game. So for John and David, I'm Chad Sherwood, and have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again real soon.